It was in my final year as an undergrad at New York University that I first experienced the power of Sabbath through two very different religious traditions. I lived in an apartment on a side street in central Brooklyn. The neighborhood at the time was primarily Black, West Indian, and Jewish. It is the home of the worldwide headquarters of the Chabad Lubavitch Hasidic Jewish movement. My street was lined with 4- and 5-story residential buildings, but across the street from ours was a thriving Seventh-day Adventist church. Their Sabbath begins at sundown on Friday, and every Saturday the street was packed, cars double parked, with people there to observe the Sabbath. First with morning Sabbath school, then a 3 to 4 hour worship service midday, followed by fellowship. As part of my religious studies major, I worked at a place called the Museum at Eldridge Street, a historic synagogue built on the Lower East Side of Manhattan in 1887 by Eastern European Jewish immigrants. The synagogue has had an Orthodox Jewish congregation meeting in it continuously to this day, even as the congregation's attendance dwindled and the building was literally disintegrating around them through the middle of the 20th century. The synagogue underwent a $20 million restoration in the 1990s and early 2000s. Just 1 month before I joined the staff, it opened as a museum and cultural space focused on American Jewish history, the history of the Lower East Side, and immigration. The Lower East Side of Manhattan is an amazing place, rich with many layers of history. Today, the neighborhood is home to a blend of Jewish, Chinese, and Puerto Rican cultures. Each year, the museum hosts the Egg Rolls, Egg Creams, and Empanadas Festival, which draws thousands of people to celebrate the cultural diversity of the neighborhood and its delicious food. My work there immersed me in Jewish history, culture, and religious practices. And as the only non-Jew on staff, I learned a lot. I was called on to design an interactive museum display that led people through the elements of the Shabbat service because they thought that I could make it engaging and accessible to a broad audience. When I left the job to go to seminary, they joked that I might become the first female Orthodox rabbi. This was 1 year, of course, before the first woman, Sarah Hurwitz, actually did become the first woman ordained as an Orthodox rabbi. During my time with the museum at Eldridge Street, I observed the importance of Sabbath, but primarily through the ritual elements and the Shabbat service. What I didn't or I couldn't really understand was the spiritual experience of it, and therefore its deeper meaning and significance. The practice of Sabbath and of Sabbatical comes from the Hebrew Scriptures. First mentioned in the Genesis creation narrative, God takes God's own Sabbath on the 7th day, resting from the work of creation. And the Jewish people are then commanded to follow God's example and to take a holy day of rest every 7 days. Some Sabbaths come every week, but other practices involve a Sabbath every 7 years. There's an agricultural practice found in the Bible called Shemitah. Every 7 years, the land must lie fallow for 1 year, with no agricultural activity during that time. Observance of this practice is considered a sign of religious faith, and those who keep it will be rewarded with fruitful harvests the other 6 years of the cycle. In religious life, sabbatical means rest or ceasing. Like a field needs to rest and lie fallow in order to return to productivity, so do we. For ministers, the spiritual practice of sabbatical provides an intentional time of rest, renewal, and learning, and helps to make ministries healthier and more sustainable for both the minister and the congregation. It's a reset, a recentering, a returning to the core of what we're about. The trend nationwide among Unitarian Universalist ministers is that they stay an average of 5 to 7 years in a congregation. This congregation is not average. You have supported many long-time ministries. In fact, we just celebrated Reverend Cantor's 20th anniversary of ministry here. That trend has not been present here because this is such a strong, healthy congregation. And because you have supported your ministers over the years in taking care of themselves, their spirits, their families, while also caring for the congregation. That balance is important. Another reason I believe this church has had such good long-term ministries is because of its support of the practice of sabbatical leave-taking. In our church, typically after 6 years of ministry, we have 6 months of sabbatical. I'm grateful that after 7 years of ministry with this congregation, we were delayed a little bit by the pandemic, you have given me this gift. Last Sunday in worship, Reverend Cantor talked about my upcoming sabbatical and gave me another gift, a book written by Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel called The Sabbath. May this gem feed you small bites at a time, he said. And so this week, I read the introduction, written by Heschel's daughter, Susanna. She writes about the experience of growing up with this famous rabbi, scholar, theologian, and activist, focusing not on his worldwide impact, but on the importance of Shabbat to him and to their family, and how he brought about the elusive atmosphere that is the Sabbath. Heschel understood Sabbath as holiness in time, not space, and as an atmosphere with a quality of sanctity that we create. Reading this struck me because as I've prepared for this sabbatical in recent months, I've been reflecting a lot on spaciousness. This sabbatical arrives at the perfect time in many ways. The pandemic for me has been neither spacious in terms of space nor spacious in terms of time. Friday is usually a day off for me, but during much of the pandemic, it was more of the same. At home, everyone at home, doing the same things, and work crept into that time and space. The space changed in February when we moved and my father-in-law came to live with us. I have my own space above the garage now, which I so cherish. But a little added physical spaciousness did not translate into spaciousness of time and spirit. The first Friday that I dropped my children off at school and had 6 blessed hours to myself, nowhere I had to be and nothing I had to do, I could literally feel the weight lift off my chest. I got some coffee, drove to White Rock Lake, and sat on a bench for at least an hour, probably much more than that. As I sat there on the bench watching the grasses dance in the wind, I was doing nothing, like today's reading talks about. Now, if you're like me and you tend to respond busy when someone asks how you are, I invite you, as I am inviting myself, to consider answering otherwise. Offer more imaginative and honest answers like, I'm hungry for a waffle, or I'm looking forward to seeing my friend tonight, or I'm really tired of stepping on Christmas presents, or I'm content. Or as the author suggests, try reintroducing nothing into your vernacular. Nothing helps us create more spaciousness in our lives. It's an entry point into imagining and then creating Sabbath. Abraham Joshua Heschel says we need Sabbath to survive civilization. Sabbath helps us figure out how to live with people and remain free, and how to live with things and remain independent. He insists that Sabbath is not about making us calmer or holding family together, nor does it mean rejecting modernity or the secular world. For him, Sabbath was a complement to building civilization, not a withdrawal from it. His daughter writes, "It was on the 7th day that God gave the world a soul." And quoting her father, "The world's survival depends on the holiness of the 7th day." So likewise, during my sabbatical, I will not withdraw from civilization, but I will withdraw from the daily responsibilities of ministry. I will hang up this stole that you gave me in the green room, where it will sit until I rest it on my shoulders again in July. You are probably wondering what I will be doing during my sabbatical. I've gotten that question a lot. My study, practice, and reflection will focus on 4 areas: parenting as a spiritual practice, faith development and curriculum innovation, justice and equity, and personal spiritual practice. One of my responsibilities that I cannot step away from for 6 months is parenting my children. I'll do school drop-off and pick up every day, and I look forward to having more time with them. Essentially, this time will allow me to be more present. Even with all the challenge and complexity of the first year or so of the pandemic, I found that spending more time with my children then allowed me to get to know them better, seeing more deeply who they are and what they need, and finding joy in their growth. It was during this year that we identified that my son is autistic, and we were able to establish support systems that have helped all of us to better navigate this. One of you asked me recently, is it really possible for you to be completely rested and renewed with 2 4-year-olds at home? And I responded honestly, I don't know. I don't know because I've never had the opportunity to find out until now. If it were ever possible, this time of spaciousness would be it, so I will keep you posted. Leading up to the sabbatical, some of my ministry has focused on parenting as a spiritual practice, introducing the spiritual parenting series of weekly emails, exploring, as the title of the book says, the chaos, wonder, and spiritual adventure of parenting. Sabbatical will allow me to delve more deeply into this in my own family. I look forward to sharing this with the families of the church when I return. As your minister of faith development, I am responsible for designing and implementing meaningful learning, spiritual growth, and Unitarian Universalist faith development for people of all ages. And so during sabbatical, I plan to connect with religious educator colleagues to learn how others are doing faith development and family ministry, and to learn about innovative models that our congregation might benefit from. I'll be looking particularly at resources focused on racial equity and justice that we might weave into our faith development ministries with children and adults to help us engage in this transformative work and further our commitment as a congregation. I also plan to read all of the curricula that we offer as part of our children's ministry's curriculum rotation, something I haven't had time to do since I took on this role, which will help me make more informed decisions about shaping and reshaping our children's ministries going forward. And lastly, I'll be taking some time to replenish my spirit through spiritual direction, travel to connect with Unitarian Universalist clergy colleagues, as well as travel with family, and through absorbing words of wisdom everywhere I can find them, books and poetry and podcasts and more. These newfound and rediscovered bits of inspiration are coming to a sermon near you next summer and beyond. All of these sabbatical projects are meant to equip me to do our work better when I return in July. I look forward to sharing with you the insights and resources and inspiration that I find. As I prepare for this sabbatical leave, there are 3 things that I want you to know. First, no matter how much and how well we plan, it is important to be open to what unfolds and what emerges. Sabbath gives us the space to do this. One of the lessons I think we've all been forced to learn these past couple years is that you can plan, but you'd better be ready to shift course at any time. I just shared with you a pretty ambitious plan for my sabbatical, and it didn't even include all of the details. And I'm well aware that it may not all get done, and that's okay. Sometimes the greatest learning comes from the experiences that are unplanned and unexpected, that arise in the moments when you are awake and paying attention to what is unfolding around you, rather than barreling on ahead with your best laid plan. Minister, theologian, and writer Frederick Buechner invites us to, quote, pay attention to the world and all that dwells therein, and thereby learn at last to pay attention to yourself and all that dwells therein. Sabbath and sabbatical, these spiritual practices give us the space to do this. As Heschel said, Shabbat renews the soul and we rediscover who we are. It's a time to remember who I am, what I'm doing, and why, which can be hard to do while caught up in the busyness of it all. This is why the spiritual practice of Sabbath is so important for all of us. Second, one of my hopes for you, the congregation, while I'm gone on sabbatical, is that you will practice Sabbath with me. Many of you are on a kind of mini Sabbath week here between Christmas and New Year's, and what better time to set intentions and patterns for the weeks and months ahead. Your Sabbath doesn't have to be a full day like it is for Jews or Seventh-day Adventists who observe the Sabbath from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday. But setting aside an hour or two, or a few if you have them, each week is a good start. Begin your Sabbath time with some sort of ritual to mark the beginning, like lighting a chalice or a candle, turning off your phone and computer, making a cup of tea, putting on your Sabbath slippers, whatever it is that marks this time as sacred. Sacred time can take many different forms. Time alone, time with family, a meal, quiet contemplation, a long walk, worship. There are so many ways to observe the Sabbath. Sabbath is when we turn our time and our attention away from obligations, the shoulds and the have-tos and the to-dos, toward the holy, or that which is life-giving and restorative. So you might feel guilty, like I should be doing something, and that's normal. But you're not actually doing nothing. You're simply turning your attention and your focus to something different. Sabbath is a time to explore who you are and how you will be when X is put aside and you're able to focus solely on Y and Z. I know some people who take a weekly social media Sabbath, signing off Facebook and Instagram and TikTok for 24 hours. You might worry, will I still feel connected if I'm off of social media? But social media Sabbath is an opportunity to explore what it actually means to be connected. Connected to what, and to whom, and in what ways? As Heschel reminds us, Sabbath may not help us feel calmer, and it certainly won't solve all our problems, but it turns our attention toward what really matters and helps us feel more grounded and more rested, which is a relative term. The writer and poet David White says, "Rested, we are ready for the world, but not held hostage by it. Rested, we care again for the right things and the right people in the right way. In rest, we reestablish the goals that make us more generous, more courageous, more of an invitation, someone we want to remember and someone others want to remember too." So this is my hope for you, that you will find ways to experience rest, to connect with what matters, to recenter yourself in who you want to be in the world and how you want to be remembered. The third thing I want you to know is this: I will miss you. I will not be in touch with you day to day doing the work of the church. I will not be here with you in worship and in classes on Sundays. I will not be checking email and Facebook for updates. And I will miss these things. I truly will. I may run into you at the grocery store or the coffee shop or the park. And when this happens, I will be so happy to see you, but I will refrain from talking about church. I keep thinking about the E.E. Cummings poem, "I carry your heart with me, I carry it in my heart." In this famous love poem, E.E. Cummings tells his beloved that he carries their heart with him wherever he goes. I will carry your heart, and I will carry you in my heart, and I hope that you will carry me in yours. Wishing the best for each other during this sabbatical time, knowing that when we come back together, we will have so much to share. I wish you well these next 6 months. May you be good companions to one another on your spiritual journeys. May you know health and comfort as the pandemic and all its uncertainties continue. When your body, your heart, or your soul is hurt, may you find healing. When you experience doubt or fear, may you find courage and nourishment. May you be gentle with each other when life presents you with the unexpected. May my absence awaken in you new understandings and new commitments, which I can celebrate with you and join you in when I return. I carry you in my heart, and may you carry me in yours. Amen.